Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to my guest list pod. I'm Darren, and this is the little show with the big goal to spread the word about interesting and entertaining podcasts and their equally interesting hosts. And as the normal rotation of my episodes would have it, today is another review and recommend show. One of the episodes where I give you a brief breakdown of something I have enjoyed listening to in the past, or something that I have found that I just have to let everyone know about. And if you're a new listener to the show, this is how it normally plays out. I begin with an explanation as to what the show is that I'm recommending, then move on to why I like it, and then finish with recommendations as to who I think might appreciate the podcast up for review. During the episode, I include audio grabs or part of an episode to give you more of an appreciation as to the show's format, appeal, and unique qualities. Now, as I'm still down the beach on holidays, I'm going to cheat a little with today's offering, and it will be a shorter episode than usual with a slightly different focus. Instead of a single podcast to recommend today, I'm going to present to you a podcast network and a number of similar formatted podcasts from that network. The Indie Drop-In Network is devoted to supporting and promoting independent podcast creators by virtue of its podcasts, YouTube channels, and social media accounts. Personally, I became aware of the network via one of its shows, simply named Comedy. The Comedy Podcast is an amalgamation of different shows submitted by podcasters whose shows fit into the comedy genre. That is, each week the Comedy Podcast presents a full podcast episode submitted from a new independent creator's catalogue, and in this way it gives the listener a different show to experience and a taste of, or as they put it, a test drive of the best indie comedy podcasters in the world. And as long as your show is in the comedy space and meets some basic audio requirements, anyone can submit their show. A pretty cool idea. Aside from the Comedy Podcast though, the Indie Drop-In Network hosts shows such as True Crime, Horror Fanatic, Fantasy Fanatic, and Science Fiction Fanatic. These shows also share this format of offering up a variety of different shows for the listener each week, while also providing news concerning movies, books, TV shows, conventions, a top 5 list in the case of the Fanatic labelled shows, and much more for the particular fandom in question. Podcast Creators is another show presented by the network and is the companion podcast to the Podcast Creators YouTube channel, a channel where you can garner advice from real podcasters and industry experts to help you on your podcasting journey. All the submissions to this network are curated and presented by Greg, the founder of the Indie Drop-In Network, who is also part of a small focus team that has been producing podcasts and YouTube channels for several years now. Greg was also one of the hosts on what I guess is now the defunct Podcast Garage, a show that I thought was a great resource for podcasters, but unfortunately only has 4 episodes. It is where I first encountered Greg, and I can only assume that Greg and his fellow hosts, Tanner Campbell and Jeff Townsend, are so busy with their other projects that they have put that show on the back burner for now. And speaking of Jeff Townsend, aka the podcast father, Greg and Jeff also do a live Q&A event on Twitter Spaces each week called the Podcasting Power Hour, where they are joined by a rotating panel of experts to answer your questions, give advice, and provide feedback in real time. This kicks off every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So why do I like the Comedy Podcast and by association, the Indie Drop-In Network? Well, I guess that should be obvious. I like comedy. I like to laugh as much as the next person. I don't always find something that interests me on the Comedy Podcast, but then again, that's the beauty of this concept. If you don't like what's on offer for one week, you can just wait a week for the next episode and a new show, or scroll through one of the other shows in Comedy's back catalogue. And this is also the appeal of the other shows in the Indie Drop-In Network, and why I love what the network provides. You get to try out indie offerings in whatever category takes your fancy. If you find something that you like, then all the show's info and links are in the show notes of the episode. The other reason I like this network's concept is that it aims to provide indie creators with some semblance of the opportunities and exposure that the big brand networks and hosting companies provide their shows. Marketing and promotion are such an important part of creating a successful podcast, and compared to Spotify, Wondery, and iHeart, independents are up against it. The podcasting landscape is becoming ever more difficult to traverse for the independent broadcaster, and anything that evens the playing field, even a little bit, is worth supporting. And if you're open-minded enough to give something new a try, then these shows may assist you in uncovering something novel and uniquely entertaining. And let's be honest, with 5 million podcasts and counting, they're not all going to be winners, and whatever help we can get in narrowing down our focus while also supporting the independents can only be a good thing as far as I can see. So, no TV shows, movies, books, or other podcasts to suggest this week. Simply go give one of the shows from the Indie Drop-In Network a listen and find that hidden treasure that you can add to your daily, weekly, or monthly rotation. Maybe begin with the comedy podcast like I did and take it from there. That's it for this week. Like I said, just a quick show to give you something to ponder while you're looking for your next podcast. Please stay well, and as usual, I'll chat at you again next episode.